This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
Hey, Susan. Good to have you here. Glad you could join us.
Hey, this is Dave Livingston. I'm in listen mode only. I'm surrounded by 10 grandkids.
Geez, okay. Well, keep your eyes open because you never know what's going to happen with grandkids running around. So we don't mind if you have to shift your focus over to them. But thanks for joining us, Dave. And thanks for coming out to take all those pictures at convention. We appreciate that. Bill Stevens is with us too. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Great.
You can see me? Okay, great.
Yep. We can see you. We can hear you. I see we've got Tim Hunsberger with us as well, and Doug Deneni. Doug, welcome. Marilyn Wong is with us. I like the flag in the back, Marilyn. I actually feel like I should have that too. I don't know why I don't have a flag in my background. Now, here at home, I don't have like a good background. It's only at the office. I got to work on that.
I've got one in my background. I don't know if you can see it. Kind of dark in here.
Who's that? Tim said that? Or Gary?
It's right behind me.
Anyway, my background is definitely lacking. I can tell you that. Jerry St. Germain is with us. Jerry, thanks for joining us. Don Giles, of course. Good to see you, Don. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And Don, I've received all of the kind of update emails from your region. Very impressive, all of the meetings that you guys took during the Hill Surge. Obviously, we'll talk about that today, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the results that we're already seeing from the Hill Surge, which is just super, super impressive. In fact, something new happened actually last week that maybe I'll mention. Ward Cook is joining us. Ward, it's good to see you again. Thanks for coming down to convention. Looks like you are in a much colder place now than Florida, where it was 95 degrees last week.
No, just in the air conditioning.
Just in the air conditioning. Okay. Well, that's good too. That's all I did when I was in Florida. I just stayed in the air conditioning all the time. Let's see who else we've got. Gail Jacobs, thanks for joining us. Good to see you here with us. And folks, just here, and we've got Julie Stranges joining us as well. So obviously this meeting, we are coming together on an actual federal holiday. June 19th is Juneteenth, and June 20th is kind of the day off. So thank you all for joining us. We had considered pushing it back, but after 2 months of not doing this regular meeting on the third Monday of each month, 4 p.m. Eastern time, we kind of wanted to get back into that normal battle rhythm. And of course, we are recording the meeting as we always do. So if anyone couldn't attend, or if any of you have to drop off early, I don't know, you might have a barbecue or something to go to, that's fine too. Everything's going to be recorded, so don't worry about that. Just wanted to make that clear. We've got, that's Dave is calling on the line, and we'll see. I think we'll wait for Chairman Jim Offit to join us, and then maybe we'll go ahead and get started. Hey, Ed Krepage is with us. Hey, Ed, how are you?
Good, Luke.
How are things in Liberty
Ohio.
region in Ohio?
Pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Glad to hear. Glad to hear. Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, we'll see if Jim can join us in the next few minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Hello, Luke.
Hello, I'm sorry, I missed, who was that?
Susan.
Oh, hey, Susan, how are you? How's everything going?
Pretty good. How about with you?
Things are going pretty well here. So we didn't get a chance to see you at convention, but did want to thank you for helping out John Kaskin during the Hill Surge. I know that we don't have a whole lot of representatives in your neck of the woods, so it really does help to have you on the line, when we reach out to some members in Kentucky, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks so much for your help.
Happy to do it.
Here's Jim is joining us. Hey, Jim, welcome.
Hey, nice to be here.
I'm sorry, did someone have a question? No. If not, Jim, I think you have the agenda, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to you. Just wanted to say again, folks, that what we'll generally be talking about today is stuff related to the Hill surge, you know, the last 2 months, how things went, what we can improve. Jim, just, you know, I've got notes from Steve Tagariello. He and I kind of worked on Liberty region, so I can fill in for him when we do this kind of the RVPs that are joining us. And we'll also talk a little bit about a possible in-person fly-in next year. So, you know,
Okay, so do you have any statistics or numbers from the fly-in so far this year?
the latest that I have is 154 meetings. I can send the spreadsheet that I have to everyone, so you can see that if you missed or if somebody from your team did not upload their report into Quorum or whatever, you can just let us know. But the latest number I have is 154. That's as of like 30 minutes ago. So that is the hot off the presses.
Okay.
How does that compare to last year?
That is an excellent question, Bill. Let me double check the numbers. I'll have that answer for you in just a moment here during the meeting, but I will point out very quickly that this year we were really focused on tier 1 and tier 2 members. Unlike last year, where we basically said, hey, if you can contact anyone, do it. So the vast majority of those 154, those are those top tier folks. And that's one of the reasons why we're having such a great response. So we kind of went for quality over quantity this year. And I think that was a great way to go about doing it. So, you know, even though we didn't get to, you know, 200, 300 members, the ones that we did talk to were the most influential on the issues that matter to us. But let me get that number for you, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
So going into our agenda and just looking at the stuff in paragraph 1, let me just open it for comments from anybody who has some experience either on how well it went, maybe a short thing on any major issues that you came up with your mom, and things that you see that could be improved. So, you know, I'd like to go just around the table, and I don't know how I can do this without having everybody shout out at the same time, but we'll give that a try. Okay, you got your hand up, Gary.
Yeah, I thought the acronyms were a little awkward. We had to explain to the member of Congress what the acronym was and then kind of what it did, such as, you know, guarding oil lines of communications and things like that. Now, I noticed that the room on the slide isn't that much, and so maybe that's why the acronyms are used. But we found ourselves, okay, this is what a you know, Carrier Task Force is. This is what that acronym means, and this is what they do. So I thought that could be improved on. And what I thought really went well, I thought the PowerPoint presentation was exceptional, and especially that it had in the attachments, it had the notes that they could use when they went to their boss, or if you talked to a staffer when they explained it to the other staffers, they could explain what we were trying to get across. And the other thing in our, you know, we had the involvement that we have in the metro area of Portland, you know, the sponsorships we have with the USS Portland, soon to be the USS Oregon, and then the sponsors of the, you know, Sea Cadets and things like that. I think that was very well.
Okay.
I'd like to add on to what Gary said. Jake Jacobs from the Portland Move Back Navy League. One thing we did with the slides is we added our own Oregon slide, which made a terrific difference because we have a substantial Coast Guard presence on the West Coast, up and down from Astoria to the Northern California border. We've got the Marine Safety Unit in Portland, and the 13th district moving in, Coast Guard. We've got a bombing range for the Navy in Boardman. We've got reserve units and recruiting units, and quite a few adopted units, one of them based in Astoria. So by including the Oregon slide in our presentation, I think for a lot of the congressmen and senators representatives, we brought it home to them how important the military is, the sea services are to our local state as well as nationally.
Yeah, well, good point. A reminder, everybody, of course, we did have that slide in the briefing where we were encouraging you to do something about your local or regional Navy League activity. So that was good, and you actually experienced them picking up on that. I think that's important to the members of Congress, to what's going on in their local areas. Okay, anybody else? And you're just gonna I have a limited view of you because I'm on a cell phone. Something didn't happen on my other phone, on my other devices.
Well, I'll jump in. This is Don Giles in Georgia, Atlanta Council and South Atlantic Coast. Things that, looking at Luke's items we wanted us to comment on, I thought in an improvement area, we could do better in recruiting our recruiting teams, our volunteers to participate in the briefing teams. I had limited support this year. Basically, all of the briefs were done by 2 of us. Did have a pretty good luck in getting constituents to attend, but that also was a real grueling effort to try to find a constituent for each of the members of Congress. We did 23 out of the 25 that were assigned, 14 to 15 in Georgia, and all of them in Alabama. We were helping the southern region, Bill Hewitt, over in Alabama, but we were able to get all of them there. 35% were the actual members sitting in, which is pretty good, almost as good as our members ever doing from this region. So 8 of the 23 were the actual member of Congress. That went very well. One thing that could be improved, Luke, the quorum listing of schedulers and the MLAs was missing a good bit of data for Georgia and Alabama. I don't know how that was otherwise, but I thought the matrix that you gave us really worked well, having the ability to track the scheduling. When you're trying to schedule as many as 25, it's helpful to have a really good matrix because of the iterations of phone calls and messages and trying to reschedule at times. But that matrix really helped the way we had it set up, especially for me when I can only use one hand right now. It's helpful to be able to update the scheduling information using that. I thought the reminder message that we sent out after the initial message, in the initial request that we had, I was very, very clear on what we wanted to do, and was a good brief outline of what was to be covered in the presentation. And we got a really good response going just direct to the scheduler copy to the MLA when we could get it. And I just called the office for those that we didn't have information on, and some of those schedulers had changed, and usually it got to the whoever was the schedule, but some of the offices that didn't get to them. So you need to follow up. But I thought some of the things that worked really well were having those brief papers and all the information you had regarding training. The copies of that available to go back and review the training helped some of the people that were involved. The other thing that I found pretty useful was immediately to get a follow-up message out and include in that a good number of the issue papers. Initially, I just tried to pick the ones I thought would be useful, but many of the staffers wanted all of them. So I ended up toward the last half just sending all 9 issue papers, and they really liked that because I emphasized that would be a good, even though there's a lot of information, it would be a good place to go for a quick review when they're working through the budget with the staffing of that. And they all seemed to be very appreciative of that. They thought the information was great. You know, I thought it went a lot smoother this year, and your coordination of it really helped. Luke, you did a great job, and I appreciate that.
Thanks, Don. Let me just mention 2 things that I picked up on from what you were saying. One, you're absolutely right that the quorum data that we get sometimes has holes in it. There's some scheduler information or MLA information that's missing. I think what we did for a few folks is we actually had our intern during the spring, William, and also Aileen, who obviously works with the Navy League, just jump in there and actually call offices if they needed to. Now, Don, I know that you were proactive and went ahead and called those offices, which we certainly appreciate, but in the future, we will just do that for you guys. So in other words, quorum usually has like 85 to 90% of the information correct, everything that you need. That other 10%, if you're missing it, we'll just call those offices directly and say, listen, who's your new scheduler? What's their email address? And then we'll kind of fill in those blanks for you. The one other thing I wanted to mention is when you talk about follow-up. So Don wasn't mentioning follow-up in terms of reaching out to national headquarters with issues or anything. Don was talking about following up with just issue briefs and things of that nature. But for a lot of folks in this meeting, I know that you did come back to us with some questions. Some folks wanted to connect their member of Congress with Center for Maritime Strategy, all types of things like that. I mean, that's really fantastic when we get those opportunities for additional interactions with an office, after that first meeting. So I'm hoping that we were able to get you the answers that you needed and to set up follow-up meetings and things of that nature. If any of you have any feedback related to that, I'd love to hear it. Did it take us too long to get you an answer to your question? Did we get you the right answer? So on and so forth. If you have any feedback like that, we'd certainly love to hear it.
Well, this is Chris Schutzenberger from Rocky Mountain Region, and every time one of my folks had a question, you were right on top of it, got back to me within 24 hours. So thank you very much. It was a terrific support on from my perspective.
Thank you, Chris. Now the real gratitude goes towards folks like John Kaskin and Scott Sund, who got you those answers. I did the relay with the emails, so I'll take credit for that. But definitely John Kaskin and Scott Sund answered most of those questions.
Okay, so any other comments?
Yeah, Jake Jacobs again. Another advantage of making these presentations, because our representatives are connected to our local areas, is the ability to promote the Navy League. So in our presentation, we told that we had 200 members in our council. We support 5 Sea Cadet units, quarterly meetings. We serve the air. We have 2 major air shows during the year, with the Bluebirds, with the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels. And the Navy League serves food to the performers and all the volunteers at both of those air shows. And we also are the commissioning sponsor council for the USS Portland LPD 27, USS Oregon SSN 793 that just happened Memorial Day. And then we mentioned all of the ships that we support. So it gave us an excellent opportunity to present the Navy League to the public via our representatives and senators. And then last week, we had Fleet Week in Portland with Navy and Coast Guard and Canadian ships in port. And at several of the receptions, we were able to further promote Navy League. I spent several minutes talking to our governor about the commissioning and the speech she made for the USS Oregon. So, bottom line is that in addition to promoting our agenda for legislation, it's a great way to promote Navy League to our local community and our local state and region.
Hey, thanks a lot. That was really good info, and that's spreading your wings. As we have said before, anytime you have a chance to talk to a government official, whether it's a member of Congress or governors or people in the city, I think that's important to do in order to spread the Navy League story. Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, Mike Spence from the Pacific Northwest.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll start with the negative first. We have a number of Tier 1 representatives and senators who are in areas, states where we do not have Navy League constituent representation or councils. I assigned a couple of those, Idaho and Montana, to our nearest council, Spokane, and they basically got no response from the offices that they contacted. So I think developing a strategy for handling those, maybe from the national standpoint, preloading those offices that you want us to target, which we do not have constituent representation, and explain to them that they're going to get a call, and that that would help a lot, rather than playing catch up on the back end when they don't respond. Essentially, they answered the phone, and then when they found out, that the people trying to contact them were not in their district or even their state, and were several hundred miles away, it just wasn't. I don't think they felt it was worth their time to listen to the message. So it may take some preloading from the national side if you really want to contact those folks where we do not have representation. The other thing that was a little bit surprising on the positive side was that our explanation of the Center for Maritime Strategy got a lot of positive response. I think that was a surprise to some of the members. They wanted to know more about it, and we even got some representatives who wanted to be involved in any legislative effort that comes with the backing of the Senate for Maritime Strategy. So that was a big positive, and I think we need to play that up, and we need to get more information out about that to the members of Congress so that they understand what that is and what's going on there. And then obviously, some products that show what they're doing would be helpful as well. And that's all I've got.
That's
Hey,
great.
Mike, Jim, real quick, Mike, this is Ward Cook from the Midwest. I just wanted to let you know there is a new council spinning up in Billings, headed up by Ron Spence, who sits on the Adoption and Commissioning Review Committee. So I'm happy to make the connection for you if you need to.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not heard that from our regional president, but that would be good news, and would certainly be helpful out there in that area.
Yeah, it's a good presence out there. He's a great guy, and he's ginning up quite a big group out there that's going to be Navy Leaguers.
Okay,
They're
great.
already Navy League members.
Yeah, if you could send me
So,
the contact information that you have,
yeah,
I'll pass that along.
I'll get your email from Luke.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, Don Giles here. If I could just make a point regarding that, I think what you just said is extremely important. The congressmen are reluctant to schedule anything, and the staffers as well, if there's not a constituent involved. And I went through a pretty good effort in Alabama. Of course, I'm in Georgia, and we were trying to schedule over there. Did get a copy of the member list from National, and another one from the region president, and I went through that and matched it to the districts as best we could using zip codes, and the one that Luke sent down actually had already identified which district all the constituents were in Alabama. That list of members was Luke, another thing related to that, some of the members have not been in touch with anybody over there for a long time. There's only one council down in Mobile, and I think there may be some members, just like we have a problem here in Georgia, that we haven't heard from a long time, particularly the life members. But anyway, the ones I could identify there, I put together a message telling them what we were doing and appeal to them to participate as a constituent. And I was able to get a constituent for all except 3 over there. But even those 3 MOCs where I couldn't get a volunteer to at least let me use their name or attend the meeting, I was still able to make contact by using a little license with the idea that I listed who was going to be participating from the recruiting team we had here in Georgia already, and that we had members over in Alabama, which we do. even though it's in another region, just like probably with all of you, you have members that are spread out all over the country. And so I'll use that to let them know that we had interest from the Atlanta Council in what was going on in their district in Alabama, because we had members over there in most of those districts, or some of them. And anyway, if you put together a little message, I sent a message to all of those members that I had an email address for, and told them what we were doing and asked them to participate. And I was able to make contact with quite a few guys who've not been active in Navy League in a long time, but did help.
Yeah, that's great, Don. That's really good work. We appreciate that. Gary?
We did have some, we contacted some members of Congress, but we did have a constituent on the briefing team. But we let them know that there were members of the Navy League that were constituents. They just weren't able to attend the meeting. And they seemed fine with that.
Okay. Okay, anybody else with comments before I, so Doug, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Were you getting any reactions there in Washington, or John Gaskin, from this effort going on? You know, people either reaching out to you or comments coming back from the questions you answered?
So for me, I did not say questions I answered. No, not directly. John, I'll throw it over to you if you had anything.
Well, basically, I supported Luke when people got questions when they were having the meetings. With respect to the impact, I think that's another item on the agenda that Luke said he's going to talk about. You know, one of the people that I briefed came back and said, if you have any issues on the NDA, let them know, and that's all that I've gotten back as feedback after I briefed them post presentation. I just wanted to add, I did the same thing that Don did with respect to West Virginia, since we have no councils there. I got the same type of listing with emails, addresses by the district. I sent it out to the 3 districts in West Virginia. I got only one reply. There's only about 20 emails that I got that of the 30 or 40 members. The various databases don't align up with each other, which is another issue that National has to be working on. The one person that came back happened to be one of my former bosses, a retired 3-star. And I did have the meeting set up with his member of Congress. And when we finally got her on the line, got that meeting set up, she was called away for a vote. So we ended up briefing her chief of staff. But it is important to try to get a constituent as part of the meetings. I continued to have to nag. Essentially, I never had a call-in office. But I had sent out, at least in some cases, 3 emails before I would get a response from some of these offices. And for the 2 states that I was involved in, Kentucky and West Virginia, and Susan helped me in Kentucky, we had connections with all but one member. So it just requires persistence and persistence and persistence, but eventually you'll get through. Even without a constituent, but I didn't get any other members of Congress in those 2 states or senators that we worked through.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing on results. Just came out today, the HASC mark, the chairman's mark, and your all efforts, the Sea Cadets did get an additional 4.3 million added into the NDAA. So thank you very much on behalf of the Sea Cadets. Back over to you.
Jim, if I could just mention just one thing very quickly. I just want to tie together something that Don mentioned, something that Mike Spence mentioned in terms of those regions where we don't necessarily have members or councils or things like that. Sometimes you do have to be a little creative, as Don mentioned. I was able to get a meeting with Senator Coons in Delaware, you know, because I basically said, look, some of our corporate members and kind of corporate network have facilities there in Delaware. That's true. We also do have, I think, about 30 Navy League members, but I could not get any of them on the line for that call. Now, tying back to what Mike Spence said, if you can identify offices like that, let's start putting together a list now, because the idea of front loading or taking special effort to contact them is worthwhile. I'll tell you why I say that. When I spoke with Senator Coons' office, one of the first things that his chief of staff said to me is, listen, we represent a small state. If you get a dozen people that care about one issue, then we care about that issue. It does not take much to push us. I think Montana might be similar. Idaho might be similar. Some of the places Mike Spence mentioned. So if we can take some, extra effort to just grab a few constituents in those places, we can get some really strong allies, because they don't have their, no one's kicking in their doors 24 hours a day. It's not like they come from Texas or California where they have these gigantic constituencies. So yeah, if we could maybe put together a list, any RVPs on the call or any other folks that can identify some offices you really want to get in touch with, but we just don't have Navy League members, or at least we don't have Navy League members responding in those places. Let's start putting that list together now, because we've got, 8 months until the next Hill Surge, so we've got time to start contacting some folks.
So the only thing I can add is I still have some meetings hanging out there with people where you were saying TBD, but we still want to meet with you. So I would say to you all, just keep going. If you've got some things hanging out there, we didn't say there was going to be a hard end date. So again, if you have those meetings, keep sending the information in once you have them and what you learn. So I think that works well for us. So if there's any other comments or concerns from group one. So Luke, next Hill Surge, why don't you take over there and see what we're up to?
Yeah, if you don't mind, let me just kind of give everyone an idea of where we are at this point, which is of course still kind of the brainstorming phase. But if we do decide to go ahead with an in-person fly-in next year, then time will go by pretty quickly, and before you know it, we'll be doing it. Now the question first and foremost is, when would it be best to do this? This is something Jim Offit, John Kaskin, myself, and even folks that attended the convention last week have all been discussing. Our first priority is to try to connect it to something that would bring people into town anyway. The first thing that would come to mind would be Sea Air Space in April. We've already got folks coming in, so why not do one day on the Hill during that? The issue with 2023 is the Hill Surge is going to happen right before Easter Sunday, so we don't think Congress is going to be in session. So if folks are coming into town for Sea Air Space, unfortunately, I don't think we'd be able to do a Hill Surge day. So I think that takes that out. Another thing would be, of course, the release of the Maritime Policy Statement, which will be in the January-February timeframe. The only issue there is, during the convention, we asked folks if they would like to come into Washington, D.C. during that time, and then we can do the release of the Maritime Policy Statement and also knock on doors on Capitol Hill to get the word out. Everyone below the Mason-Dixon line was not happy with that plan going to Washington in February. The response was strong. That's all I'll say. So I don't know if we're going to get everybody coming up there in the cold month of February. Now, if that's the case, that kind of knocks out all the big things that we would be doing in Washington, because I mean, really, it's just the release of the Maritime Policy Statement and then Sea Air Space. So what we would end up doing is essentially planning this fly-in for a date that's not connected to anything. So folks, if you're coming in for Sea Air Space, you'd have to come back again for this fly-in, because it would just be kind of randomly floating out there, maybe the end of April or May or something like that. So the big question still is when we would do it. I think it would have to be before the beginning of June would be ideal. If we did it in June, we'd be getting a little late into the game, but it's not the end of the world there. Like late April, May, somewhere in that time frame would probably be best, if we definitely cannot do it in February for Maritime Policy Statement. So Jim, I don't know if you want to go around and ask folks if they have a preference of that kind of midwinter time frame, February or maybe May. I think what we're looking at now, those would be the two times that we might consider doing.
Luke, at the convention, I also had a discussion that if we had it as a standalone meeting, whether people would go without, that whether the expense would deter them from coming, and that whether they would need some augmentation. And essentially, everybody said that they would go without necessarily having to have any a stipend. And there were about 15, 20 people. Now, we also said that we would likely go out with a poll and ask people the questions that Luke is asking now, because not everybody's on the line here. And I think that we need to do that in addition to what we learn at this particular session. So we'll have at least 2 data points, and then I think a poll will help confirm, what might be the best time.
Yeah, I think we probably need to nail down the date before we go out for the standalone episode. So anyhow, is Sierra Space still going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Easter, or is it Thursday? Right. So
I believe so. Yes.
So maybe when we get the congressional schedule, I mean, we can kick this down the road a little bit. But if either of the houses is in session, it could be worthwhile. And quite frankly, sometimes when Congress is not in session, or whatever you call it, adjourned, staff is still there. But I think it's much easier to get hold of the mocks when they are there. So we'll just have to keep working that issue. So I like the idea of taking a poll via email, and we may have to ping you all a couple of times. But when we do this poll to the list, I think we would appreciate a negative response, so that we don't know whether you're hanging out there and just haven't seen the email or not. So, and don't be afraid to do that. If you can't make it for one reason or another, that's fine. We'll do it with whatever we have in the way of a team that we can put together, and that'll again, start with tier 1, tier 2, and work down to whatever resources we have available. Okay. Any other questions about the next Hill Surge? Again, we could still do the virtual, and then we could still do in-district meetings. Although I'm finding that even locally, I'm kind of sits between actually 3 different districts, 2 in South Carolina, 1 in North Carolina, and they still prefer to do the virtual meetings. They just think it's so much easier than me trooping into their office. So you just take what's available, I guess, is the bottom line.
Yeah, just to make sure there's no confusion, a big part of this is still going to be, as Jim said, virtual or in district. If we can get folks into Washington for an actual fly-in date, that's fantastic. But as many of you know who have done this before, a busy day is 8 meetings in one day, and that's obviously not all of your members of Congress. So you'll still have, we'll still do like 2 months of setting up virtual meetings with some folks and in-district meetings with other folks, but maybe that tier 1, maybe those are the folks that you actually sit down with in person in Washington. So that's the part that we're still figuring out. The rest of it is going to be similar to what we did this year, maybe a bit more in terms of in-district meetings. But sorry, Jim.
That's fine. That was good, Ad. So anything else into 1 or 2 before we go to the 3 and maritime transportation strategy? That was great. You want to do that, Luke, or John? Do you want to talk about that? Either one.
I'll let John do it, but I want to mention one thing before we forget, because I don't think I put it in this agenda. And John, if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute. So last week, I mentioned this in the newsletter, but last week, there was talks of reviving the reconciliation bill, also known as the Build Back Better bill. And there was kind of this last minute push for some Coast Guard funding. And we found out that of all offices, Senator Manchin, kind of the immovable object, everybody wants to push, Senator Manchin to do this or to do that. His office wanted to hear from us. We heard this from several sources. John, you were on those emails too. They specifically said that Senator Manchin wants to know where the Navy League stands on this. And the reason for that is because John Kaskin, and Susan, I think you might have been on this call as well, but John Kaskin briefed Senator Manchin's staff during the Hill Surge, and they were so impressed with his expertise that when this thing came up about a maritime issue, the Coast Guard, they said, well, listen, before we make our decision, we want to know where the Navy League stands on this. I mean, that's amazing. And again, of all the senators, Senator Manchin, he's always in the news because everybody wants, to influence him on one thing or another. He reached out to us and said, I want to know where the Navy League stands on this. So that's huge. Just wanted to mention that. John, if you want to talk about the maritime transportation strategy, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, I think it was just a brief on how our asks were handled by the Hill in both the NDA and the Senate Defense Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. Although that one is a little bit more problematical because as far as I understand, and maybe Doug can correct me, they decided just to follow the president's budget submit as the top level. So they really weren't able to add any resources like what the authorizers did. But with respect to our concern about the SCN budget and the loss of ships, I don't think they got up to the $30 billion that we asked for. I'm still trying to see what the bottom line is because you have to, the authorizers don't have the dollar tables like the appropriators do. And since the appropriators haven't added money, then you know, we still have a ways to go to find out what the bottom line will be. But nevertheless, the authorizers have pushed back on the one area that on the slide for sure. They are not allowing the Navy to stiff arm the Marine Corps on the amphibious force. The Navy's budget submit in 30-year shipbuilding plan or the FIT of the 5-year plan was going to stop building amphibs after the LPD 32. There's language there, I think, that survived. I haven't read the full mark that just came out yesterday or today. But they were pushing for the 31 ships that the Commandant was asking for and put, I think, $150 million for a long lead for LPD 33, which is the next. So they're going to continue that production line and give the Marine Corps more amphibs. The HASC Chairman's Mark decided to give up all of the 9 LCSs, but they also are preventing the Navy from decomming the old LPDs, I guess, until the new ones come on board. So those are the major results in the SCN area, the shipbuilding area that we were briefing and what came out of it. With respect to the maritime side, the maritime authorization bill had been drafted by the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, and it adds more money than what in the president's budget submit. And there is a requirement. If you saw, we had this issue about Red Hill. There is a report requirement on what the Navy's going to do to find new storage, permanent storage, and the plan of action with the closure of Red Hill, as well as there's a lot of language on how you're cleaning it up and how you're going to create water in Hawaii to make up for the loss of the Red Hill water supply or until it's proven to be clean. So there was some language there, and we pushed that one pretty hard. There was in the Senate mark on the MARAD authorization, they doubled the amount of money for the tanker security program. You saw that we had a concern that we didn't know what the number of tankers are, and we think it should be higher. So we think that's a start on that direction. However, just for everybody's knowledge, the maritime industry particularly the maritime unions have said they can't expand too fast. There's not enough qualified tanker people out there to crew up ships very quickly. They'll gradually be able to do it. But after COVID, the merchant marine manpower is now basically to the ragged edge of crewing ships that are out there today. A couple of the companies I heard recently actually had to delay the sailing of a couple of their ships because they didn't have the right qualified crew for a couple of days. And there was another ship that had to replace its whole crew because of COVID. They were able to get going though, but it's really tight right now, just for your information. And there's going to be, I think, a little bit more effort on the merchant manpower issue in the future. The Coast Guard, I haven't seen an authorization or appropriation associated with it. The major problem we specified there is inflation. everything that was added in the president's budget pretty much gave everything that we asked for, including about $180 million for infrastructure. But the inflation that we're experiencing is eating up all of the excess money that was given for operations support, so they're not going to have any real growth. And so that's really going to be up to what the appropriator is going to do to address inflation, because the president's budget, which is what they're based their mark on, I think only assumed 2.9%. And we know right now they're experiencing a lot higher. And when the Navy Comptroller spoke to us last week at the special topic breakfast, they had padded some of their Ukrainian supplemental requests to be able to handle some of the inflation, but it didn't cover the fuel increases. And he estimated that for next year, the FY23 budget, they're $2 billion short in the fuel bill right now. And so, if Congress doesn't do something about increasing the FY23 budget, there's going to be some serious reduction in operations next year. So I'm sure they'll do something, but at this point in time, it hasn't happened. So I think that's about the run through. So I think we got a lot of what we asked for. Whether we were fully responsible or partially responsible, it's hard to say, but we certainly pushed that. A lot of those issues include the maritime transportation strategy. Now, the maritime transportation strategy was in the Sea Power and Protection Forces subcommittee MARC. The full MARC didn't have it, but it didn't have a lot of other maritime administration sections in it, including the authorizations for their programs. So it appears to me that there's still some missing holes between the input that they get from the T&I Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation Committee, which also has split jurisdiction of the Maritime Administration, and what gets put into the NDAA. So I don't know whether it's going to make it through the process, but meanwhile, the Senate had their own language, which was not identical to what was on the House side. And we have some concern with some of the language, but at least it does call for a maritime, they call it a maritime strategy rather than a maritime transportation strategy. And so it's something that can be worked in conference in any case, assuming that it makes it through the Senate. So we both have, so there's maybe language on both sides, and none of that language existed last year. So that all came from our efforts on the Hill this year. That's the end of that ramble, unless somebody's got some questions.
Yeah, I've got a question. Did they indicate where the money was going to come from to pay the OM&N and personnel costs for the ships that are not going to be retired? You know, it sounds great that those ships aren't going to be retired, but if Congress doesn't add money, then it's going to come out of the Navy's hide somewhere else. So is there a proposal there to add money to the Navy's TOA to pay those costs?
Well, that's the issue that the appropriators will have to do in their mark, because if they add if they agree with what the authorizers did, well, with keeping the ships, then they'll have to address that issue. It's one of those peculiarities between authorizers don't really have to put a lot of number for the O&S bills. That's all covered by the appropriation clerks. It's important for us in our communications to keep that in front of people's minds, and we will do that to the best of our ability in discussions with the appropriators. But as you're probably well aware, even in the Navy, the program sponsors only can talk to the authorizers, and only the Navy Comptroller can talk to the appropriators. And so the Navy Comptroller, I assure you, will be making that case very hard right now in his discussions with the appropriation clerks. When we saw him last week, he made it known to us that he has a good relationship with them, and what will happen is either they will add the money for the operations, or they won't agree with the authorizers and add the ships back. You know, they don't like unbalanced programs either. So we'll just have to wait and see and watch and be sure that people don't forget about it. We'll do our best.
Okay,
Anything
thank you.
to add to that, Doug?
Yeah, Doug, you got anything to add?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't hear that. No, John is on top of this. He has, all those puts and takes taken care of. And to answer the question about the puts and takes, I think John handled it well. It's way above our pay grade. That's for the professional staff in the smoke-filled room, make a cut here or a cut there. But you're right. Unless there's a top line increase in a Navy procurement or OMIN or RDT&E account, it will come out of the Navy hide. And I think from a parochial position, the services seem to be caught in this lockstep 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 funding. And from a big picture, that's something we as sea service representatives need to articulate that isn't an archaic, that's nice and it makes everybody happy that they're getting 1/3 of the budget. But when you look at the threat of China, what needs to be done to grow a Navy to counter that threat, that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 isn't the right amount. So.
Now, Admiral Covington did say that when he went into the details of the 23 budget, the plus ups were in cyber, space operations, and then maritime. And he supported full funding of those first two because he said without cyber and space, we wouldn't be able to conduct maritime operations. And he did say the Army was somewhat of a bill payer. Now, you didn't see a large movement, but there were billions of dollars moved out of the Army. But when you have a $700 billion budget, it isn't like a big noticeable number, but a 1% cut in the Army still did help. But there's no question that we'll have to have more of that movement in the next couple of years. And I think the likelihood of the defense budget increasing with inflation over the next 2 or 3 years, where people are expecting 6 to 8% on the average over the next 3 years, that means a 25% increase that will have to be accommodated in the next couple of years. That's going to be tough. And I think that's when you're going to really see the knives coming out, and where that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 will definitely have to disappear, or there's going to be a bloodbath. There'll really be a bloodbath somewhere, but presumably it will be based on priority, not based on arbitrary numbers. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, any other comments before we call it a day? Appreciate everybody. Appreciate the good work. Luke's in.
I think Ed Krepich has a comment. Yes, Ed.
Yes, the Cleveland Council in Ohio is starting to get reactivated, and we're going to change it. The name's been changed to the North Coast Council. It'll cover a bigger area. So John Silva's up there is working on that.
Fantastic. Ed, if I can help in any way, if you'd like me to attend one of your meetings virtually, or kind of talk about the Legislative Affairs Program, I know you're up for doing that, but if you want me to help out, please let me know. I would be happy to do so. We had some great meetings in Ohio.
Appreciate
so looking forward to doing that some more. Yeah,
and if everybody didn't see the comments, we're at 154 this year and 127 last year. Is that correct, Luke?
Yeah, now I think we're above 154 because I know there are a few folks that even at convention were telling us that they just hadn't logged their meetings yet, and we were at 154 I think then. So I don't know what the final number is. We're going to have to kind of maybe contact some RVPs one-on-one and just get an idea if there's any folks that are still waiting to log their meetings. But 154 now, but I think the number is at least into the 160s at this point.
Luke, you said you were going to send out your spreadsheet to us so we can try to do a verification.
Yeah, I'll send that out along with some of the notes that I took during the meeting. But yes, I'll send that out, in the next 10 minutes.
What was that number you mentioned for last year, Jim? I missed.
127, Don. We had 127 last year.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Luke, Gary Battles, I got a question for you.
Do you know what the number is? Do you recall what the number is for the last in-person fly-in?
I'll have to double check on that one, Mike. That was about 2 years ago. So let me get that number for you, and I'll send that out with this email. I'm sorry, Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, I lobbied for two other groups. One is a climate advocacy group, and the other one's MOAA. And the climate advocacy group has used a text app from your iPhone about the last year, where you get a text. It's your day to call Representative Bonamici. It's got a text on what they want you to read. You just press the number that dials her Washington office, and you just read everything. And then MOAA, I had some legislative training 2 weeks ago. They started the same app, and that one is a similar thing. You can get it with a QV code. There's a link to get it, and it sends you the message. Call Senator Merkley. It comes up, dials his number straight into Washington, D.C. It's got the text on the phone. Hi, my name is Gary Battles. I'm a constituent, and I want to talk to you about this, and that. And then if you call them after hours, because I was showing some people how to do it, they give you a call back saying, sorry, we missed your call. But if you still want to give us a call, give us a call. So
Gary, what's the name of that app? Do you remember the name of it?
I can give you the MOAA link.
Yeah, if you could email that to me, that would be great. And then
Yeah,
that sounds fantastic.
I'll do that to you. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that would be an interesting
But
thing.
It's a way to get them. It's a numbers game. You know, they react to how many people call up or send them an email on, and they just cross it off. They don't know. They could care less what you're saying. They just said, hey boss, we had 5 people call in about this.
Okay. Well, we do have the Voice to Congress campaign capability, so folks can send in emails about something. We have a pretty good platform for that. But the text and things like that, you know, honestly, Quorum has so many features we don't use. Do me a favor, Gary. Yeah, send me the link for the one for MOAA, and I'll look into that app. But that'll remind me to ask Quorum, because I have another meeting with those folks soon, if they have a similar capability, because I wouldn't be surprised if they do, and we just haven't used it yet. But yeah, if you don't mind, send that to me, Gary. That will remind me one way or another to look into that.
I will do that. I have to take my wife somewhere, but I'll get to it this week. Okay.
Take your time. No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
I think Jim Semarat has a question.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it to 30 seconds. We've been real busy talking with the Congress people in the Midwest, and everything is opening up. I mean, generally speaking, they didn't want us to come to DC because they're all closed. And I went to the Naval Academy on May 26th. I stopped by Navy League headquarters. Everybody's still working virtual. But nobody was there. So anyway, I had a nice visit at the Naval Academy. They did an in-person event. And so generally speaking, in the whole Midwest, everything is opening up. It's absolutely incredible. So Navy Week is happening, like 60 sailors are flying in here in the middle of July. We got the air show going on. Captain or Admiral Lennon from the Sea Cadets is coming to Great Lakes. Captain Radomski called me. And so all of that activity, Recruit Training Command is opening up. But here's the thing, I wanted John Kaskin to hear, and Jim Oppett and yourself. I made a presentation up in Lansing to the Commanders Club. And one of the people there was a former CO of the Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier. So, I mean, he just retired. He was the XO of the George Bush aircraft carrier. And he basically said the LCS ships do not perform the mission necessary for a carrier strike group. And he was not in favor of keeping the LCS ships. However, the councils in the Midwest, including our Congress people, are strongly opposed to the decommissioning of a ship. Some ships are less than 5 years old, and they're talking about decommissioning them. So what the actual verdict is not my job, but I just wanted to share that the general consensus of, even our Congress people are not in support of, they think we ought to find some other use for the LCS ships, but the active fleet is not in support of the LCS ships. Over. I just thought that was important feedback. Over.
I appreciate that, Jim. And in fact, we've been kind of encountering similar feedback from a lot of the meetings that we've been having. As John mentioned, it looks like those LCSs might be getting the axe. We were concerned. One of the reasons was, as you said, how are you going to explain to the taxpayer we put all this money into the ship and 5 years later we're going to decommission it? Another issue is that, as Elaine Laurie has pointed out, and a bunch of other folks, Kate Granger, I think out there in Texas also pointed this out, listen, these ships do have some actual missions, maybe not in the most contested areas in the world, but they do missions in South America. They do training missions with our allies in the Pacific. If you're going to scrap those ships, then you're going to scrap those missions. And those are real missions. We don't have the destroyers to replace those LCSs yet. So, we've talked the talk on that one, and we've brought that up in all of our meetings, but that might be one particular item from our presentation that's just, I think there are some opinions that are dead set one way or the other, and the folks that are willing to go along with scrapping them might have the larger numbers. I don't know. We'll see what finally comes out of the conference when the House and the Senate make their decision on it.
Look, do we have any insight on the ones that are still being built that are, still in the contract? There's 4 or 5 still in the build process. They talking about not continuing that, or do we know?
So let me tell you, Don. So there's actually boats that have not been commissioned up in Marinette Marine that they are talking about just scrapping, okay, or selling to foreign sales. I mean, I think that's probably the most promising thing, is try to get some money out of these things for foreign military sales. So
okay.
We just had the Duluth commissioned here. I believe it was the Duluth commission there. There's supposed to be one that goes down to Cleveland. Still waiting to hear on that one. But, up here in the Great Lakes, we don't really care because we're going to get the frigate contract. So as long as we have boats that are building up here and keeping that shipyard alive, we're happy with that. But we just think it's the wrong use of taxpayer dollars. Maybe we can get some money out of these boats. So, over.
Okay, thank you.
And Don, also, this is Ward. There's no movement to scrap the Independence variant right now. So we're just talking about the Freedom variant, and all those that were built after the St. Louis, which is LCS 19, have been retrofitted with the correct gearing, the transmission problem that had plagued the earlier ones. So really, we're talking about the 9 that are prior to the St. Louis. The Minneapolis St. Paul was the one that was just commissioned just a couple weeks ago. So we're just talking about the 9 that are previous to the St. Louis, which was commissioned last year. And in the Senate, according to an article that came out Thursday, the Senate put in money for 5 of those to be saved, and 4 would be decommissioned. I think that's right. So, but it didn't specify which ones would be decommissioned and which one would be commissioned, or which ones would stay on. So we'll just have to, like Luke said, we're just going to have to see what gets worked out in the NDAA later on this fall.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ward. So unfortunately, I got an email from Jim Offit. He got kind of disconnected. I think he's down at the beach, which makes me very envious. But if there are no other questions or concerns, I'll kind of close things out. I want to mention, I didn't get a chance to say hello to Bob Epstein earlier. Bob, I think you're in Dallas, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fantastic. Listen, thank you so much for joining us. Bob has been very enthusiastic about getting involved in legislative affairs. And Bob, not only have you picked the right time to do it, not just in terms of what's going on in the world, but also because you've got a fantastic team there in Texas. So make sure to stay in touch with Tim Hunsberger, who's here with us, Al Wagner, Cub Amos. In terms of legislative affairs, more so Tim and Al, I think. But you've got a fantastic team down there, and if we can help you here at National, we'll do that.
Just very briefly, introduction. Been active in politics for many, many years, very active. I chaired the Lincoln Day dinner, sponsored dinner for the Lincoln Day dinner, the largest in the country. Active in MLWW, active in the Air Force. My son went through Eglin a number of years ago. He is the highest ranking EOD officer over in the Middle East right now, as a captain of the United States Air Force, somewhere in the Middle East. But again, very active in politics. I was National Guard years ago, but as I said, we're bringing down the next president of the United States possibly to the Lincoln Day dinner in February. So I'm very active. So please use my contacts. I'm a phone call away from anybody in Texas.
That's very exciting. You heard him, folks. Sounds like we've got a strong ally there in Dallas, and Bob, we will be reaching out to you, so be ready for that. I'm sorry, did someone else have a comment?
No, I was just telling Bob, this is Tim Hunsberger. We need to get in contact.
Sounds good. Well, listen, everyone, thanks for joining us. Steve Easterday and Chris Schutzenberg, I don't know if I had a chance to thank both of you for joining us today as well. And enjoy what is left of the holiday weekend. Vic Holbert is with us also. Enjoy what's left of the holiday weekend, and we will be in touch. Don't forget, we have Grassroots training next Monday. We're going to be talking about some of the bills that are coming up in Congress and what we might be doing over the next couple of months. So join us next Monday, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Take care.
You too.
You too, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.